Hey, this is Bob. I'm going to do a quick video. I'm going to go kind of fast here so it's not 10 minutes long. Suspension overhaul in the front on an 09 Highlander all-wheel drive. So, struts. Went with the KYB Quick Strut Plus units, or Strut Plus units, so that's all assembled. Comes just like you see here, so you don't have to deal with compressing the spring. I have a spring compressor, I just didn't want to deal with it, so. These were pretty reasonably priced, so I went with that. That's pretty straightforward. New sway bar links. Ran into a couple of issues, so also doing control arm, ball joint, sway bar bushings, inner and outer tie rod ends, and I think that's it. So real quick on the control arm. So I ran into a snag here on the back side. So there's 3 bolts that attach to the control arm. One's obstructed and the other 2 aren't. So the one on the bushing side, when I took the nut off, but the bolt was seized inside the bushing, so when I turned the bolt to try to get it out, it just rotated with the bushing, and there's no way I could get it separated, so I had to go in here and cut it. So that took me a couple of hours, and that's why that's a little deformed. That's from using the pry bar to try to pry it out, which I probably shouldn't have done, but it compressed just fine. So just a heads up on that. Use PB Blaster and everything well in advance. Inner and outer tie rod ends, pretty straightforward. That's why they're not here. I haven't installed those yet. I think that's I can verify the size. 34 millimeter. I just use a crowfoot attachment on a 1/2-inch breaker bar, and it popped right out. Not much to say about the inner tie rod. That's easy. I don't know if you can see it there. Yeah, it's pretty standard setup. You can do that. So the other side of the control arm are the 2 bolts I mentioned. So one goes here near that green dot. That one's stripped, so I need another one, which is why you don't see it. The second one, this is all the way forward in the car now, is under this engine mount. So it's right under here. So you can't really, if you look right down, maybe you can see it. But it's the same as that one, or same as the other one. I'm pointing to something you can't see. So in order to get that out, you need to jack the engine up. So the way you do that, and this is on the passenger side, take that dog bone mount off from the top side of the engine. I blocked up under the oil pan with a big block of wood. That seems fine. I know some people are a little nervous about that. I don't think there's a whole lot of tension on that, but I guess I'll find out when I pull that jack away. Then you can jack the engine up, because you need to get that bolt out, and then you can remove, there's the 3 bolts underneath, and then this mount comes out. I also had to remove the 3 bolts for this bracket, so I just got that a little additional clearance. This one behind here is a little tricky to get to. Those are all 14 millimeter. So just deal with that. You got to get the mount out of the way so you can get that obstructed bolt to do the control arm. And then the reinstall is pretty straightforward. I made one mistake, one rookie mistake, and I've done this a million times on other cars and not made this mistake. I didn't loosen the castellated nut on the ball joint while the car was on the ground. So I was trying to put pressure up from underneath to get it, and it wouldn't go. So I wound up having to cut that nut off. That was seized on there as well. And maybe it would have broken free if the car were on the ground. I don't know. So reinstall, once you get through all that, reinstall the control arm first. Well, if you have the axle out, which I did, I'll get to that in a second. So go axle, then control arm, and there's 3 bolts that hold the ball joint. Is two nuts on the bottom, and then 1 bolt threads through right on the top there. You can see it sticking out a little bit. And then that's it. So that's pretty straightforward. And then the strut installation, that'll pop right back in. That's easy. So I discovered one thing. One, don't put any outward tension on that joint. And this happened to somebody else on one of the forums. This boot just popped right off, and then you're left with that inner part of the joint inside the transmission. And I probably could have put it back together, but I just got a new axle instead. It's a brand new Cardone. We'll see how it holds up. I can say that their tech support is awesome because I called them twice. We'll see how the axle holds up. I can report back. But do the axle, if you're doing that for some reason, do the axle first, or control arm, then axle, and then tie rod and strut in whatever order you want. And that's pretty much it. So yeah, those are all the components I'm replacing. Oh, one last thing, sway bar bushings are here. It's only 2 bolts, really hard to get to. One of those stripped on the front side for me, so I had to tap that out, use a crescent wrench, like a quarter turn at a time, to get that back in. So it looks easy, but sway bar bushings are a real pain on this particular model for whatever reason. There's just not a lot of room there. So that's it. Let me pause here. That's pretty much everything. Hopefully that will help someone out there and maybe go a little quicker than I did here. Thanks.